this is a taxi data set. It has the pickup time, a date time. It has the drop-off date time, number of passengers, the trip distance, and a lot of other settings that you see here on fare amount, payment type, and all of these things. Now, another tip, once you whenever you explore these type of data frames, is actually to leverage this new feature that we have in our notebooks in Synapse that allows you to explore the data. And you may just look at me right now and say, well, this wasn't super useful. And I kind of agree, but this is, bear with me, this is actually pretty neat. So for this one, we could actually leverage this built-in visualization feature to, just take a look at our data. So let's leave the bar chart. Let's go here and go and select. Let's pick trip amount. Maybe that's a pretty good. Or let's pick tip amount. Why not tip amount? Yeah. And I think I need to deselect. So I just want the tip amount in my key, and in the value in this bar chart, let's put trip distance. So it's pretty neat how I can this easily, without writing any code, I could actually explore my data frame in this way and get an understanding, of, let's say in this case, it looks like, for example, you can get an understanding of, based on the trip distance, for example, to see, where are the most of the tip amounts. In this case, the range is, see here that this is the longest bar, so this is kind of where we have the most of the tips. Just some advice how you can take a look at this. You can obviously slice and dice it further if you want to explore with this, but just one additional way to explore your data. But let's go into the next cell of the notebook to look at other ways how typically, data scientists would go and explore the data in any notebook. So I'm going to go ahead and start running the cell so that we can go through the results in a little bit. But what we're doing next here is that we have this data set now. We need to understand it a little bit better. We need to see can we learn anything from this by exploring to figure out what features we need for this. So this is the exploratory data analysis that we're doing. So for this one, we're going to plot three different types of plots. The first one that you see here is going to be a histogram, and this is pretty much going to look at the tips by amount for all the rides. So that's this section here that you see here. That's what that's doing. The next plot that we're going to plot, and we'll go through them in a bit, is a box plot, and that helps us to look for outliers in the data, because whenever you have outliers, these very odd, unique values, you want to clean the data eventually from those, because they may mislead your machine learning model a little bit as it's learning from the data. And the third plot we're going to plot is a scatter plot, and that can help us, in this case, find some correlations in the data. And this one looks at the relationship between the fare and tip amounts. So if you run this cell, you'll probably be able to see these the outputs here. And if you take a look at the first plot, it doesn't really fit in. You can see all of it, but let's scroll to the bottom of it so we look at it this way. So you see here that this histogram shows us that most of the tip amounts are in the $0 to $5 range. And I think this is actually what we were observing. We were observing the same thing when we did the chart earlier in the cell, to say that, hey, the longest bar that you see here on the tips is on the lower side of the tips, right? The tip amount range. So that's what we can take away from that particular one. Now, if we scroll down, let's take a look at the middle plot, which was a box plot. And here we can see that, look, our data actually has some outliers. So clearly, what our takeaway from this is that there are some outliers that we probably need to clean up in the data set before we go into the modeling. Because we don't want to mislead the model too much. We want to focus on the part of the data set that's actually most relevant. And then the last plot, which is the scatter